Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. We just hit 46.3k subscribers. Let's get to 50k by election day. Please like this video down below and subscribe to the channel. And today we have to talk about the way the campaign is moving for both campaigns. And this is the battleground map that I have come up with. Obviously, Maine 2nd District should be in the likely Trump column. There we go. So right now it's a very close race. Biden has 216. Donald Trump has 205, with many battleground states outstanding that could technically end up going either way. And the polls right now nationwide have Biden up by 7 points. But I don't believe that's the case, especially because Joe Biden is not playing like he is down 7 points. He very well could be employing a strategy to act like he's behind so he wins by as much as possible. But if that's the case, why is he spending so much time on Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania? Whereas if he was actually going for a landslide, he would be focusing on places like Georgia and Texas and potentially North Carolina and Florida. But he's put very little time and little energy into Florida, and the polls are narrowing there. So it kind of leads me to believe that Trump may be up Florida by a margin that Biden doesn't even think is surmountable because of the lack of energy being spent there by both campaigns. If Trump was down in Florida, I think Trump would be trying hard for it based on the fact that it's his home state. He wouldn't want to lose it for a pride purpose, and the fact that it's a must-win state for Trump. It's not really a must-win state for Biden. Biden has multiple paths to victory without it. Trump has a couple of paths as well, but the paths are much narrower, and it would include Trump having to sweep the entire Rust Belt, which is probably not the most likeliest course of action, especially with the fact that Nevada seems like it's a little bit too far gone for Trump. I don't think Trump is going to have a real shot at winning it. Donald Trump obviously forgot to fill in Maine at large there. 218 to 205. There we go. That's exactly the state of the race currently. There's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 states that are actually battleground states, and obviously Nebraska second is a battleground district, so we have to fill that in. So 218 to 204. I think we finally got it right. So that's where the map stands right now. But as we move on, we don't always have to look at early polling from September to determine where the state of the race is. We can look at what the campaigns are doing. If Donald Trump is pulling funding out of a state that he was supposed to win by a narrow margin, usually it means that he's probably winning there by a solid margin. And that's what we're seeing here. Medium Buying reports that the Trump campaign is making changes to ad schedules that had been booked for next week, includes canceling buys in Iowa and Ohio, adding the money in other states. So apparently the few losers in the replies here do not seem to understand that when you are canceling the buys here, it's not because he's short on money. He's not short on money. He's just diverting the money into other states here. So you look at Ohio and you look at Iowa. These are two states that Donald Trump won by a massive margin. He crossed 50% in both states, and he ran up the margins in the rural areas that have been trending red. Many of these rural counties he was getting close to, if not over 70% of the vote in. If anything, this time he may be able to improve on those margins, as well as doing better in places like exurban Cincinnati, and that would kind of give him a leg up on actually having a good shot at victory in the state of Ohio. Even in 2018, if you look at the state in the governor's race, where it was much more of a dogfight than the Senate race, Republicans really ran at nobody for the Senate. They lost, but they still overperformed expectations by several percentage points. The governor's race in every single poll was supposed to go to Cordray. Almost every single poll had Cordray up. But when you look at the results that came in on election night, it heavily favored Mike DeWine. And I know some of my audience probably has some grievances with the way he's handled things like the lockdown in Ohio. That's fine, but that's not exactly what I'm talking about. Mike DeWine ran up a lot of the margins in a lot of these rural counties that Donald Trump did very well, and he was getting in the 60s and 70s, even though it was a blue wave year. He still comfortably won the state of Ohio by roughly around 4 percentage points. And you saw a similar thing in the state of Iowa. If we want to look at Iowa in the presidential race, Donald Trump did extremely well in Iowa. He ran up the margin in a lot of these rural counties in the eastern part of the state that he actually flipped from Obama. Obama did very well in rural Iowa, believe it or not, but he did. And Donald Trump did very well capitalizing and bringing a whole lot of Obama supporters to his camp. and Donald Trump won the state of Ohio by 9, almost 10 percentage points. It could go safe, but it is a very elastic state. And in 2018, for Republicans, they lost a couple of House seats narrowly, partially because Democrats ran good candidates. Republicans obviously ran bad candidates. Even Steve King almost lost, but Steve King is a whole nother mess. He's not your standard Republican, so that kind of weighed down the generic ballot advantage for the Republicans, kind of helped the Democrats have a bigger win than it really appeared. But in terms of the gubernatorial race as well as other statewide races, Kim Reynolds did fairly well. She ran a campaign. She's a pro-Trump Republican. Fred Hubbell is kind of, I guess you would say, a more moderate Democrat than Joe Biden is. And he's a better fit for Iowa than Biden. He couldn't win. He lost by 37,000 votes. She almost won by 3%. And many of these red counties stayed red. There were some counties that flipped back into the blue column compared to Donald Trump's victory, but Donald Trump has the ability to bring out his base more so than Kim Reynolds would. I think Iowa's probably, no matter what, even if Donald Trump does lose every single state that I've considered a toss-up on this map, I would expect him to win Ohio and Iowa, even though the polls show it narrow. And if the polls are showing Ohio as a toss-up, but Trump is really ahead by 8, that means he's probably doing fairly well. I know Ronna McDaniel said Trump's internals had him up in Wisconsin, although technically you can't always trust that word of mouth type of stuff coming from the campaign. Of course, campaigns are going to brag. Trump's campaign said he was gunning for 40% of the Latino vote today. I don't think that's going to happen. He may get the mid-30s at best. He's not going to crack 40. Those would be Bush 2004 numbers, and at that point, Nevada, you could argue, would be a red state, and New Mexico would even be close at that point. But that's probably just not going to happen. And when you look at what's happening here, the Trump campaign is making changes, and you can see it right here. They're canceling their ad buys, as I've talked about, partially because they're confident. Biden is playing defense. Biden is not super confident about this election. There's a reason why he's having to go out there and defend his record. If he was actually up 8 points, he could just stay in his basement. He wouldn't be making any gaffes, but he's rolling the dice. He's taking a risk. We're going to see if it pays off, but when he's making some of his claims and comments he's been making over the past couple of days, I think if anything, it's going to hurt him. It doesn't really matter what these mass media polls that sample registered voters have to say about it. And if we look at what the Trump campaign is also doing, they are canceling TV ad spending in Nevada and Pennsylvania. Now, Nevada is a state that Trump probably is going to lose, and that goes without saying. If you look at some of the polls we've seen, even though there's been very few polls usually overestimate Republicans there. They have Trump down by 5. I don't think he's going to lose by 5. That's just one poll. I think Donald Trump probably loses Nevada by around 3 or 4. But it's a very inelastic state. Clark County is really where the vote movement's going to be because Trump is really maxed out in most other parts of the state. And if the margin in Clark County gets below 65,000, Trump would have a chance. And on election day, as the mail-in ballots come in after, it will appear like Trump won Nevada, even though he won't win Nevada. I'll have to talk about the red mirage in another video. So it makes sense why he's pulling money out of Nevada. Pennsylvania is a weird one because he's not giving up on Pennsylvania. He's actually doing a rally in Pennsylvania as I'm speaking right now. So I think he may be diverting funding temporarily like what he did with Michigan. Maybe he's putting the funding into Wisconsin. He's putting the funding into Minnesota because he is redirecting the funding into other states. And I think he really wants to go after and get Wisconsin, get Minnesota. We haven't talked a whole lot about Arizona, but that is a very, very important state for Donald Trump to hold because it is 11 electoral votes, even though some of the polls look like it's slipping away. So what the metrics are showing in terms of fundraising is that Biden seems to be playing defense, going to these rallies and talking in front of the media, even though he hasn't done it in months. Donald Trump appears to be going on offense, but he appears to be changing his strategy. Of course, he doesn't need to spend in Ohio, Iowa. I'm sure he's going to cut funding in Texas next because he's probably going to win Texas. Same thing with Georgia. You have to have the local operation, the get out to vote operation. You probably don't have to be spending so much on ads in Texas and Georgia. He should be spending more in ads in Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota. Eventually, I believe he will come back to Pennsylvania. He will put a new ad buy in there, maybe later in the month or so. But it shows that Ohio and Iowa, these states tend to probably be showing signs of going safe. Biden also pulled funding out of Iowa. He's still on the air in Ohio. I don't believe that that's a very smart strategy. He'll probably pull out of Ohio as well. So Biden and Trump are focusing in and spending money on similar states here. Trump is spending money on Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Pennsylvania temporarily pulling funds out. He'll probably have to come back to Pennsylvania. Biden has pulled money out of Iowa as well as a couple of other states. So we'll have to really see how it goes. But either way, this is a very tight race no matter what, regardless of whatever polls you see that have Trump down by 7 or 8. And he's probably down more like 4 or 5 right now. And even if he is down 7 or 8, he still technically could actually win the Electoral College by a wider margin than he did in 2016. It's a very, very narrow path and possibility and would require several things to happen. But yeah, there was this graphic that I think 538 came out with that showed how Trump is underperforming McCain in many blue states, but he's just doing better than him in the swing states. Therefore, he technically could actually pull off this election by losing by a margin that McCain lost by in 2008 in terms of the popular vote. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, but it looks like Iowa and Ohio solidifying for Trump, Nevada solidifying for Biden. The Rust Belt is kind of a mixed bag. Biden's a little worried about it. And if he was really up by 7 points in these states or double digits, he would not be out campaigning whatsoever. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Please like this video down below, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media, become a member, donate to the Patreon, or subscribe. Star links in description. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.